Braxcast time once again, guys. This is the 47th episode of the Braxcast, and this is going to be the most stone cold episode yet. Of course, there's been a bit of a cold front across most of this country, being the U.S. Even snowed a little bit in my neck of the woods today. So, perfect time for Yaira number 2 to launch. And it is a really exciting time to be a fan of the Rippaverse. Of course, I've said that Yaira number 1 it's been my favorite book of the Rippaverse so far, so to have the sequel coming up so close to that and follow her story and keep up with his ongoing series is going to be extremely exciting indeed. But let's not bury the lead too much here. Let's get right into these covers for Yaira number 2. So we've got cover A. This is by Kanan White, of course. He's really settled into the role as being the Rippaverse's main cover artist, and this is an absolutely fantastic cover. Of course, we'll get into spoilers for Yaira number 1. Yaira number 1 ends with her meeting Neptune, and Atlantis and going under the seas is going to be a very big part of Yaira number 2. Is going to be extremely exciting to see. And of course, this cover done by the very talented Kanan White really shows off the trident, shows off the motif of Atlantis, and of course, it definitely has her costume in full glory, which is what she gets at the end of Yaira number 1. But that is Yaira number 2, cover A, and we're going into the B cover. Not only is this the retro cover, this is done by Joe Bennett. It's got that Rippaverse code of ethics. It's got that little character box there. It's got all of this really nice text here, and it says that Yaira has hell to pay. Trapped in a waking nightmare, her past proves impossible to escape, and introducing an old friend, Yeshua. Now, that does sound to be a bit biblical. Of course, we've established in the past when we've talked about Bloodroof that the Saskas definitely are drawing from the biblical, I guess, narrative as a source of inspiration for their stories for the Rippaverse. That could definitely be a character from the Bible, Joshua. Those names that start with Y typically get translated into Joshua. And there are multiple Joshuas throughout the Bible. Of course, this could be a character like Yanessa or Yantoni. Definitely one of Yaira's race who comes from the cosmos to Earth because they have business with Yaira. I think that's the more likely thing, but we'll definitely see. This cover was done by Joe Bennett. Of course, Joe Bennett, very talented artist, and I think he's probably going to be the most prolific interior artist of the Rippaverse, given the fact that he's working on 2 ongoing series, and by the end of this year, he'll have done 2 one-shots in total. Of course, we got Horseman Welcome to Flores Park, in November of last year, and this year we should be getting Zalen, and of course, Alpha Core and Horseman are ongoing series that are both getting their second issues this year, and Joe Bennett is the artist for both of them, and he's also the artist for this lovely retro cover that does feature Magus Newmite, who, if you know, died at the end of the first issue of Yaira. I believe that was during the oil rig explosion that she set off, to not telling Magus Newmite to not mess with Texas. But of course, Magus Newmite cannot be left well enough alone. He will be coming back most likely because nobody in comics stays dead unless we're talking about Uncle Ben, and Magus Newmite certainly isn't Uncle Ben. But that is cover B for Yaira number 2, once again done by Joe Bennett, and is a lovely retro cover, which the fans really like, and I do as well. And we've got cover C. This is, I believe, the foil and embossed cover. Now, this is a 56-pager, so as in the rep reveal, they did say that they were going to be shortening the length of these books to get them out in a more timely manner. And of course, this came out early January. Someone in the last episode, I think it's Seibel, if I'm getting his name correctly, said that it would be late January. I said it would be in February, but we were both wrong. Early January, absolutely lovely to see this. And this is a cover done by Will Conrad, who of course did Gooding the Polymath. And he did all of the art for the Dokumon cards as well. And he did this lovely cover C for Yaira. I believe this is a foil and embossed one. And this book being 56 pages, it's their cheapest yet. I believe it is $13 for the D cover, and I think this is under 30 for that special foil and embossed cover. But again, it is a 56 pager, which is still about 2 or 3 floppies long in terms of if you were going by floppy. So this is definitely going to be a good amount of story for what it is, and it's coming so soon after we got Yaira #1 fulfilled, less than a year. So it's really, really nice to see them shorten it, but not too much. It's not under 50 pages. I think 56 to 60 is a pretty good sweet spot to maintain, where you still are getting enough story out, but you're also having them be short enough where you can keep the release schedules or the timing between releases short enough to keep the fans engaged. But we're going with cover D. So we've got the last cover here. This is done by Mark Evans, who did cover D for Alpha Core #1. He also did cover D for Yaira #1. And he's got this lovely airbrush realistic style that I absolutely love. Of course, you've got Yaira in all of her frozen glory there, along with Stefania, who, if, again, this is spoilers, but this is talking about Yaira #2, so that's going to be inevitable, joins Alpha Core at the end of Yaira #1 because she gets Yaira's power sets very cosmically. It's still a bit of a mystery how that happened, but I'm sure as her story goes on, that being Yaira's, we'll find out more about Stefania. And of course, there's always the opportunity for her to appear in a story in a Ripazine, her to get her own one-shot graphic novel where more of how she got her powers is explained. That would definitely be a very interesting story to go over. But I absolutely love her Alpha Core uniform. Absolutely lovely. And this is an absolutely lovely cover, and this is the mass print cover for Yaira #2, and I think it's a fantastic one to keep as the mass print cover, along with Alpha Core cover D, Alpha Core #1 cover D, and the Yaira #1 cover D, which he did both of those as well. Absolutely fantastic covers. These are all great covers, and the fans responded really well to Yaira #2. I believe the first day is where it took, just over a day to make $100,000. And having checked this Saturday, I guess late Saturday morning, about $175,000, over 5,000 books have been sold. And again, this is a $13 book, so the raw revenue is going to be a little bit lower than the Yaira #1 campaign because there aren't nearly as many fixings on the merch end, and the books are cheaper, but the fans are still responding to this really well. This is going to be a really interesting story because there's just so much to go into with her cosmic aspects of her story, involving Yanessa, Yantoni, Magus Numite. We've got Neptune in the fray. We've got her relationship with the government. All of that. There's so much to get into. But we also have another book besides the Yaira #2 itself, is The Art of Deborah Carita. Now, of course, we got The Art of Joe Bennett, which I went over on an episode of Braxcast, so be sure to check that out. We also are getting The Art of Will Conrad. Pre-orders for that are still up, I believe, and that should be fulfilling soon. I don't remember the exact date for that. And now we've got the third art book, which is The Art of Deborah Carita, and she has fantastic interior art. And of course, this cover that she drew is also the art used for the January of the Rippaverse calendar. And of course, making this the art for January should have clued us into what book was going to be releasing from the Rippaverse in January. This is an absolutely fantastic piece of art. It's going to be really nice to break down this book on the Braxcast and just read it in general. I really like The Art of Joe Bennett. It was an absolutely fantastic book that, basic stapling is pretty simple, but their paper quality is it's very good. Got good paper quality. It's thick without being heavy. The inks look nice and they don't feel bad to hold at all. So I love the book quality, and that maintains throughout the Ripazine to their perfect bound or perfect square bound trade paperbacks to these art books. So it's going to be really exciting to go into Deborah Carita's art because her art is absolutely fantastic. And to show that off, we've got a little bit of art to show. So I think these are some of the interiors that were released alongside the collection. And this is, I would say, extremely interesting because this shows her at battle with a battleship. So of course the military is going to get involved with Yaira. It does seem like in the trailer she wants people to think that Yaira is dead. Of course, she's probably going to not keep that mindset for too long, or something is going to happen in Atlantis with Neptune where she's forced out of the sea in some grandiose way where she has to reveal herself and she's going to be on a superpowered run, and of course using her ice powers to control missiles being fired at her is extremely badass. Excuse the language, but can't really think of any other word to use when I'm at all of the stone cold power of our Ice Queen Yaira. That is really cool to see. I absolutely think this is a fantastic preview page. It's one of three. I'll show another one, and then we are going to probably close this up. Oh, this is upside down. There we go. This is the 2 of 3 of preview pages that we got for the Yaira #2 collection. Now, this is a pretty fantastic one. This is, of course, just showing off Yaira in her full glory. I'd say basically all of the ladies of the Rippaverse are quite attractive, but Yaira is probably the most, if we're going to go and say, other than Saoirse maybe. But I love blondes, I love redheads, so it's going to be hard to choose. And of course, Yaira being this, like 6 foot plus alien woman that's got this, very much like a Scandinavian frame to her, is an absolutely beautiful human specimen, even though she's not human, right? But she's humanoid, very much looks like a human in a nice bathing suit. Absolutely fantastic. I love art like this, and of course, the fact that this keeps up with the sea motif is fantastic to see as well. So just seeing how she gets into these situations, why she's swimming like that, why she's wearing heels, and all these sorts of things, we'll find out once we get the book and we can dive into it. But that is all I have for preview art for now. Of course, as this collection goes on, I definitely want to speculate more and talk more about Yaira #2 because it's going to be a pretty important one for the Rippaverse this year, along with, I'd say, Norfolka and Great War of Separation are going to be really interesting in building that lore. But in terms of building the current lore, as in for what's currently going on with the timeline, starting with the events of Ice and #1, I'd say Yaira's story is going to be massively important, along with Alpha Core as well. But since, this is Yaira Winter, we're going to be hyping up Yaira's story, and I think her story is going to be essential to the ongoing lore of the Rippaverse, and of course the Great War of Separation. I would say Norfolka are going to be establishing what happens before Ice of #1, and I kind of feel that way about Alpha Core, but I think Alpha Core is going to really be that link between the Great War of Separation and the modern timeline, because Solari is going to feature very heavily in the Great War of Separation. But like I said, that is getting off topic for what we are talking about, which is Yaira #2. So this is an absolutely fantastic collection so far. Of course, the fans are responding quite well. Really do like this collection format. Of course, you don't need a big glorious campaign for every single book, and considering the fact that there's most likely going to be a book launched every month, having too much merch is actually probably going to be a bad thing. So I think having 4 covers and the merch options that they currently do is a really good sweet spot that they're hitting. Absolutely love that, and it's absolutely so happy to see that this book is coming out so soon after Yaira. It's going to be less than a year since we got it, since this book is planning to fulfill in March, which is when the campaign for Yaira #1 launched. And of course, that began its fulfillment end of May, early June, if I remember correctly. So it's going to be less than a year between these issues. And of course, these are big, meaty issues. Yaira #1 was probably 4 or 5 months worth of floppy comics, and this is going to be about 2 or 3, and that's getting to us in less than a year. So there's going to be a lot of story for us to dive into. And like I said, Yaira, I'll show off this little bit of art here. So Yaira's story is going to be really interesting. And of course, with the end of Yaira #1, we know that she finally got that, I'd say, I guess iconic is not the best word to use, but to me, it's an absolutely iconic design. I love that design of her costume. She gets it at the end of Yaira #1. Of course, this whole story with Neptune and it revolving around the sea and exploring Atlantis. And of course, this new character, Yeshua, if I'm saying that correctly, or saying that correctly, if that person's an alien, if that person is a Joshua from the Old Testament, who knows? We're going to find all of that out when Yaira #2 gets in our hands in March. So it's going to be it's not going to be a long wait until we get the next issue of Yaira. The next issue of Yaira, we get to learn more about her story. And like I said, with just how interesting she is and all of the things that surround her involvement, like I said, with the government, as in we saw that piece of a preview page with her being attacked by a battleship. And then, of course, the fact that she's got members of her own race traveling across the cosmos along with Magus Newmite. How does Magus Newmite survive? There's a lot of threads that Yaira #1 really established that we desperately want to see expanded upon, and it's so nice to see that going to happen in March. And of course, I will review this. I will review an Yaira #2, so stay tuned for that. And of course, I will keep up with, or I will keep the Rippaverse news coverage going on the Braxcast. So hopefully, if you enjoy the Rippaverse and you enjoy my coverage of it, you'll keep following the Braxcast. But that's all I have for you guys today. Again, this is a really exciting one. Having another Yaira winter so soon after the first one is really exciting, and it's going to be so much fun to hype up our Ice Queen of the Rippaverse in Yaira. But like I said, that's all I have for you guys today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. And Joker is out. Thank you for tuning in to the Braxcast. Be sure to like, comment, follow, and subscribe to keep up with the Rippaverse.